Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rollsicle. My name is, of course, Nathaniel. I'm one of the hosts here at Rollsicle, and sadly, I'm still not joined by Ashley, my co host, as she is still on holiday in California. But the show must go on, and we're making videos without her. That being said, we've got a little bit of a different topic today. If you guys haven't checked out the channel, I made a video talking about 2025 and change and getting to kind of make that year your year or my year in my case, and how that was kind of piqued by some interest in video games for 2025. And that kind of inspired this video, which is kind of the opposite of that idea. I wanted to talk about some of the things that I just can't stand about the video game industry now, like current day video game industry. It's not going to be that formal of a video. I just kind of wanted to break down a few things and talk about what I think is going wrong, what I think people could be doing better, how I think we could change and go back to a much better time, and what I think was actually better about that time, what I think was probably worse about that time, maybe a little bit too, right? So if you guys want to just hear my thoughts on it, talk about what's going on, let me know down in the comments below, that sort of thing. Check out the rest of this video. But before we jump into that, I wanted to let you guys know to please leave a like, comment, or subscribe, because it really does help out the channel. So if you guys want to go do that down below, that would be greatly appreciated. That being said, let's jump into this. So what are my thoughts on video games? Well, generally speaking, I think that video gaming has kind of tanked a little bit since back in the day. When I say back in the day, you have to keep in mind that I'm not that old. So back in the day for me is like the 2010s and whatnot, where gaming was just, it just seemed to be so incredible. You know, you had games that were coming out and their sequels would be out within just a couple of years. There was so much hype for it. Xbox was doing phenomenal, and I'm not even an Xbox fanboy. Like, I was PlayStation my whole life, but Xbox was doing phenomenal in the Xbox 360 era up until the PlayStation 4. And then Xbox One just kind of ended that, and after the PS4 generation, which I think was an incredible generation, we ended up in this PS5 generation that we're 4 years into, and just why has it all died off so much, right? That's what I've kind of been asking myself, is just what happened, right? Because so much has happened. It's not like gaming itself is any worse, but it's more like the industry around it has kind of reshaped itself and decided to focus on other things. I wanted to cover some very specific points about what I think caused this shift into gaming just not being nearly as exciting as it used to be, and gaming only having some small bursts of excitement, such as 2025. For me, I'm very excited for a lot of games coming out that year, or at least next year. But what I'm not very excited for is everything in between and all of these games that I want to be excited about. Like, I want to watch succeed. I want them to do really well. I want all of these things, and it just seems like so much of them fall flat. And of course, it's a staple. Agua. Delicious. Okay, so let's jump into things. Number one. Point number one. Whatever you want to call it. Nostalgia. I definitely think that we have to talk about nostalgia a little bit, right? Because nostalgia is sort of the driving force behind a lot of what I think people are feeling. And nostalgia can also be very like befuddling. It's not always what we really think it is, right? How many people, I've done this so many times, have like cherished a game from our childhood, and then we go back and play it and we're like, oh, this is disgusting. You know, like I did that with some of these Transformers games on my DS and whatnot, which, like, no hate to them, but I used to think those things looked incredible. I thought they had killer open worlds. And then I go back to them and I'm like, this is just a bunch of rectangles. Like, this is not anything to cry home about. So I wanted to make this point first that I do think a big part of it is just nostalgia. It's that era of like, oh, I want to go back to being a kid and not having other stresses and being able to just focus on these games and love them and enjoy them and endure through the ones that aren't the best, and just be able to dive into that hobby so much without any other stresses. And that has nothing to do with the gaming industry. That has to do with us growing up. And that's really not gaming's fault. But I did want to make that point. Okay, on to point number two. And this is something that I do think is a huge fault of the industry, is the push for games as a service or live service games. Like, how many games, when you look at Sony saying that they were going to make like 8 more by the end of the next 2 years, which I know got canceled and like is down to 3 or 4 or something along those lines, but it was still a super high number. And you have Destiny, and you kind of have CODs, which are like that, but not quite, but you kind of have them. And then you have Diablo, and then you have all of these games. I think Helldivers might be kind of like that, but I'm not 100% sure. You, of course, have your like MMO games, those are like live service at this point. When you look at like Warcraft and all of those things, there are so many games that view themselves as a service, and I don't think that's what gamers want. Like when you look at the games that are winning Game of the Year, it's not these live service games, right? It's the Elden Rings, the Baldur's Gates, these games that are finite, they end, but they're such a good experience that they're replayable. You can get more hours in an Elden Ring than you can in Destiny, or at least I would say you can get more enjoyable hours in an Elden Ring than you can a Destiny. And I think it's far more successful. And I think gamers as a whole love those styles of games a lot more. And that's coming from someone who hasn't played Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate, because quite frankly, I just don't have the time to game as much as I used to. And I haven't dove into games that I know are going to take me 80, 90, 100 hours. That's just a tough pill to swallow. I plan on working on it. I made a whole backlog video. We're getting on it. 2025 is my year, right? I made a whole video about that too. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about that games as a service ideology, right? Why do these companies want to make so many games as a service games? And I think it's because it creates a cycle of payment, right? If the game is a service, just like the Netflixes and the Game Passes and the Disney Plus and all of these services that we pay for, they work because we're never actually purchasing a product. We're buying into the service as an annual, or at least recurring if it's monthly, price. And that's kind of what games want to do, right? They want to come out with these games that they're free to play, or you have an upfront charge, which is even more ridiculous if there's an upfront charge. But then they also want to bleed you for a little bit of money every couple months or every month or whatever it ends up being for that service. They want to keep making you pay. And I have to imagine for the successful ones, it's very profitable. But what I don't think they're keeping in mind is that gamers only have so much time. And the only reason that these are profitable is because gamers are pouring the money into the game they're pouring the time into. But most gamers have a limited amount of time, and one live service game is usually enough, and asking for enough time, that you don't get to pour it into more than one. Or at least most gamers don't get to pour it into more than one. So then you have to choose. And the problem is these companies that have 3 or 4 or 5 of their own live service games, they're kind of competing against themselves, right? Because if I drop one of Sony's live service games to pick up another one, they just lost someone who was paying the recurring money. And then on top of all of that, it inspires these companies to take this content and basically package it into things that they're going to sell us over the year, rather than just creating a fully complete, enjoyable game from the get-go. There is so much content in an Elden Ring or a Baldur's Gate that you can buy for $70 on launch, or now $50, $40 if you find it on a really good sale. And you just have hundreds of hours of content there to dive into, to love, to complete. And it's incredible. Like, it's exactly what gaming was meant to be. And it's so much more fulfilling than buying another COD or buying into the Diablos or buying into the Destinies, where you're promised so much content in the long run. But let's be real, you're also promised that you're going to have to pay for it. You're also promised that it's going to come with another charge. Whereas you buy Baldur's Gate, or you buy Elden Ring, or you buy The Last of Us Part 2, which is a hugely controversial game, but it's still an experience, right? You buy It Takes Two. I'm going through Game of the Year winners, if you guys couldn't tell. You buy Sekiro. All of these games, it's very clear that they are a coherent package that you play through, you get the experience, and you're probably going to play it again because that experience is so damn good. Anyways. All right, next point. I think that player expectation has gone through the roof, right? Like, when I look at people and I talk to people about video games, they're always talking about how much better one game looks than the other, or how much faster one game looks in terms of frames per second, or how much more of an open world there is in this game rather than that game. But I think gamers have pushed that expectation and that desire and that, what's the word I'm looking for? When you have like supply and demand. Demand, there we go, it's in the name. The demand for that is so high that, of course, video game developers are trying to supply them with that. But the problem is the focus then shifts from what makes video games so unique and special. What made video games so unique and special is the story, is the gameplay, is the worlds, is the interactability. These are things that made the game so phenomenal. And you scrap that to make the world 2 or 3 times bigger. I don't care if I have to go through twice as big of a desert in the next Assassin's Creed game if there's nothing to do in the flippin' desert. I want to have stuff to do, and I don't just want go fetch something missions, which is sort of what a lot of these games focus on. Is they're like, there's 150 missions to do in just this one sector of the world. That's great, but all of them have me go collect elderberries for, some old woman that I don't care about. I want meaningful story-based missions where side quests impact the main story, or at the very least they tell a more complete main story where you're not even getting the full details. Like, you get a full story by just playing through the main game, but you can get more details and you can understand it better, and you can dive into side characters that are just kind of there in the main game, but they have so much fleshed out in the side quests. This is what I want from a game, and nobody's making it anymore, or at the very least I should say almost nobody is. And as soon as they do, it's a standout hit. Like, it's killing it when it hits the Game Awards, and we're all like, ooh, I wonder why. Well, maybe it's because they actually made a good video game, but I digress. The point that I'm saying is I think a lot of that has actually been driven by player desire for games to look better, for games to have a bigger world, to have a higher graphical fidelity, for all these things. But I think by definition, you can look at the indie scene and suddenly you see that there's all sorts of games that are incredible, and they don't have that great of graphics, and they don't have that great of massively open worlds, but they have lived in interactable worlds that are fun to play in with a great or they have, I couldn't English there for a moment, and or they have great gameplay that's incredibly engaging and incredibly fun, and all of these things that make a great game a great game. Not how big the world is, not how great the graphics are, not how detailed the beard is on the main character. And I just think that our focus as gamers is in the wrong place, and it's telling designers we want the wrong thing. Okay, so then building off of that, I think another issue is that those designers are having to answer to their bosses, and their bosses are having to answer to the corporate figures in video games, which, let's be honest, they don't care about the games, right? The best games get designed by people that love video games, that want to play video games, and that make a game they would love and that they want to play. But more realistically, most games are made because of the potential for profit. And most corporate figures in gaming don't care about video games. They care about said profit. They care about bringing in money. And so they chase the live service. They chase the free-to-play store model. They chase bleeding series is dry and throwing in just copyrighted names just for the name branding so that they can sell more. You get a Tom Clancy blank, right? You just throw Tom Clancy on there so that it sells better. You throw Call of Duty on there, or you make one every single year just so that it sounds better. Do you know how excited I was that they were going to take a year off of COD? And then we got Modern Warfare 3. I'm going to let that sink in. Not the original Modern Warfare 3. That's a perfectly acceptable game. We got the new Modern Warfare 3. If you've even seen that campaign mode, enough said. Enough said. I didn't even buy it. I literally didn't even buy it, and I know how shit it is. Anyways, I think that corporate influence is also ruining gaming because so many games aren't being made for the right reasons. These games are being made for the wrong reasons, and that main reason is profitability. I understand that it's a business, but businesses succeed when they're making things that consumers actually want, not just making things that are likely to sell well. Things that, when businesses succeed, sure, if you're making something that's likely to sell well, you can succeed. But when it comes to the entertainment industry, you have to entertain the person buying the product. These aren't bowls that every kitchen needs. Sure, we all need a $5 plastic bowl to go in our kitchen so we can eat our cereal in the morning. But that's not why I'm buying a video game, right? There's not a need for it. The need is I want to be entertained by this product that I'm buying, and I want it to be interesting enough so that it entertains me. When I just see, oh my goodness, guys, Activision's making another Call of Duty. Can you fucking believe it, y'all? Yeah, I can believe it. They've done it for years and years and years. And I used to subscribe to that. I used to literally buy every single Call of Duty. Now, I bought Black Ops 6. I haven't even touched it yet. I'm sorry, Austin, if you ever see this. I literally bought it to play with my friend Austin, and I haven't gotten to it yet. But I've heard it's okay. I've heard it's pretty good, and that gives me so much hope. And there's great games that look like they're about to be coming out in 2025, and that gives me so much hope. but I feel like it's just going to be dashed. And I feel like there's so much hidden corporate greed behind these games. And that's why we get games like Foam Stars. Yeah, you guys remember that one? You probably don't. It's a sad ripoff of Splatoon. And what else do we even get? These canceled BR games. You get Concord, which really just wants to be like an Overwatch clone. Now, don't get me wrong, Marvel Rivals looks like it's going to be pretty good. Overwatch clone, but with Marvel characters. You can do it, but not every game should be it. Most games that are getting highly praised these days are original ideas or returns to franchise that we've missed, and franchises that we love to see again because we know they're going to be story driven. We know it's going to be a good game. Don't disappoint me, CD Projekt Red. I am looking forward to The Witcher 4. The next point that I wanted to make is how the online industry of gaming has changed a lot of games, right? Because so many games are trying to focus on the online aspect of gaming. Massive multiplayer games, massively online games, cooperative online games, shareable online games, whatever it might be, free to play online games. And I get that for the younger generation, I'm not Timmy at 12 years old running around screaming skibbity toilet. That hurt my soul to even say. But I understand that that generation prefers those types of games and are into those types of games. Fortnite and Roblox rules the worlds for them. But as just someone that considers themselves a hardcore gamer, someone that considers themselves a lover of gaming, beyond even just video gaming, a lover of just gaming and nerd culture in general, we don't want that much of it. We like the good products that let us play with our friends, and we also like the products that we get to either experience solo, or if you're like me and you are an extrovert, despite this being a heavily introverted industry, you get to share these games with people. I get to take a single player game and go, I'm going to watch you play this because I want to share it with you and it's single player. And if that sounds creepy or weird, that's fine, but that's what I love doing with people, right? I'm going to take my favorite games and I'm going to say, I want to watch you play Spider-Man PS4 because I want you to see how incredible of a game it is. I want you to fall in love with these characters. I want you to see that Yuri Lowenthal is the best Spider-Man, and I'm not going to let anyone deny that. It's fine. Streaming. So when I'm playing an online multiplayer game, do you know what I hate? I hate when I'm just sitting back. I'm casually playing Rocket League. I'm casually playing Call of Duty. I'm playing these games. The last thing that I want to see is, Twitch.tv streamer when I get killed. And that's coming from someone who streams, but I don't really stream those games. And when I do stream those games, if I do stream those games, it's going to be in a casual sense. It's going to be like, come watch me and Ashley or me and Trenton or me and someone else hang out and play Rocket League, having a good time. We might even be playing offline. If we are playing online, we're not taking it too seriously. We are not like hardcore sweating, pushing up the glasses, telling the chat to, I don't even know what we tell chat to do. L's in the chat for our opponent, maybe, something like that. Everybody wants to be a streamer, and that's perfectly fine. I want to be a YouTuber and a streamer to some extent because I'm literally making that content right now. But I don't pretend like I'm the best at these video games. I'm not the best at these video games. I'm slightly above the average player at Rocket League and probably slightly below the average player at Call of Duty. And those are the two main multiplayer games that I play. That's nothing to cry home about. I'm not great at either of these games. And it's perfectly fine if you make a career for yourself on stream by being really good at these games. Or even if your whole goal is just watch me get better. That's why I have a whole series on this YouTube channel that is Road to Mythic. I want to be better at drafting Magic the Gathering. I want to become someone who's actually known for being at least half decent. I would already put myself in the category of around average, and I want that to change. I don't have a desire to do that for these other games, and you also don't see me on Twitch being like, L's in the chat, guys, for my opponents, or anything like that. If I'm going to Twitch live stream drafting on Magic the Gathering Arena, it's going to be after I already consider myself a very well-versed Magic drafter, because I just don't think everyone should be trying so hard. Casual gaming died a long time ago when it comes to these multiplayer games, and it just makes my heart hurt. Lastly, and I might lose a lot of you for this one, and I'm sorry if I do, but I gotta make it. I have to be true to myself and true to what I feel. So I wanted to end this off, before we get into slight solutions, I wanted to end it off on the last thing that I think has impacted gaming, and it's going to sound really bad. But gaming in the last half to full decade has gotten a lot of new members, and it's kind of become cool to be a nerd and cool to play video games. And I love that. And it's also cool to be in the TTRPG world. And it's also cool to be into board games and card games and Magic and all these things. And I love that it's cool to be doing those things. I'm glad that the stereotype of just some, lives in his mama basement nerd is starting to die, even though I work at a card store and I know plenty of nerds that feel it seems like they live in their mama's basement, but it's fine. It's okay. I've smelled a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. It was rough. Y'all gotta learn how to take a shower. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is we've gotten a lot of new members, and that's not a bad thing. But we've also sort of been adopted by what I can only call the woke culture. And I might have just lost a bunch of subscribers just for saying that alone, but I have to stand by what I believe in. And I just don't really think we even want to be a part of that community. Look at the games that are winning Game of the Year. Baldur's Gate 3. Sure, I think you can have gay relationships in that, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not against any sort of homosexual things being in games. That's perfectly fine. But I do think that the culture indoctrinating games into them and kind of saying, you are now part of us, you now, are one with us, is just not exactly what we asked for. I think separation of that in gaming is really important. And when you look at these games that are winning, most of them aren't focusing on that. They don't feel the need to have a specific protagonist because it's politically correct or that's what the woke culture would want. They just have whatever protagonist would work best in their games, and half the time that's a strong female protagonist, and that's fine. She's in there for a reason. She's not just there to check off your DEI box and then call it a day. And I'm tired of the games that are doing this, right? And I'm tired of mainstream games feeling like they have to force this. We all played the first Horizon game, right? And spoiler alert if you didn't, there's a lot of kind of tension between Aloy and a lot of male characters. And of course, in the second game, it kind of continues, but in the DLC, it's at least shown that she is at the very least bi. I mean, she could be fully gay. It might be announced. I'm not 100% sure. We know that she was made that way. And I just don't know if that was a necessary, inclusion. I'm not against it, but I think when you look at it in and of itself, it's not a problem. But then you look at them doing the same thing with Ellie, and then you look at them doing the same thing with other female characters. I'd have to think, but I know that there are some. Then you just look at all sorts of other mediums that are doing this, like Call of Duty, for example. Call of Duty. I promise you, Call of Duty players, the average Call of Duty player doesn't want their game to be woke. And they added in, for calling cards, you could add in a bunch of flags as your background. And they had the pride flag. In fact, they had 27 different pride flags. Why are there 27 different pride flags or more? But they added all of them. And they didn't even have the American flag. It's just entirely ridiculous. And then when you add on top of that, the game designing and creating industry is also being flooded by this woke culture that is making the writing and the storytelling and all of this stuff bland, and they feel like it's funny to kind of insert political agendas into gaming where it doesn't need to be inserted. When you look at Borderlands 3, which is a game I haven't played, but I've seen some of the lines in there, and it's just humor that does not land. It's just ridiculous and it's not funny. Saints Row, and you look at the humor in that game and it just doesn't land. The conversations between characters in those games, or the conversations between characters in Gotham Knights and all of these games, that they had so much potential. And then you look at it and you're like, this isn't how people talk. This is only being delivered this way because they think it's funny to make fun of a particular group of people that they don't agree with, or they think it's funny to support a particular group of people that they do agree with. But when you're selling games, you're selling them to the masses. You're selling them to people that agree with you, you're selling them to people that disagree with you, and you're selling them to a lot of people that are indifferent and just want an escape from their fucking reality because life sucks. My life doesn't suck. I love my life. But I know for a lot of people, it really does. I could make a whole video on wokeness in video games, and I'm not going to get into it too much. I could make a whole video on a lot of that side of things. But I just want to say, I love that there are a lot of new members to video games, but video gaming doesn't belong to a particular group of people. It belongs just as much to the woke, left-leaning, politically active, and very confrontationally politically active side of people just as much as it does to the more conservative, reserved people that want to just stay at home and play games. That's not necessarily me. I'm not trying to say that I own these games as much as anyone else does, although I do. Video games exist and should be there for everyone. Every single person can benefit from an escape and find a game that they love and that they want to play and that brings them joy. That doesn't have to be the same video game that you love or the same video game that you want to make. And I think that so much of the world, beyond just video games, but specifically in video games, wants everyone to love exactly what they do. But that's not what makes the world a beautiful place. The world is a beautiful place because we love and we cherish and we find interest in different things. The diversity of everything that we love and that we find important to us and that we cherish and that we hold with value is different. And that's what makes the world such a diverse and beautiful place. I need gaming to stop trying to find the optimal video game. I need gaming to return to this Mod Podge of hundreds and thousands of different types of video games because there's hundreds and thousands of different types of people. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. If you really liked it, please leave a comment down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're a small channel here at Rollsicle, and you really, really, really do make a difference. Every single time that I see our subscription number go up, like it was 124 just a couple weeks ago, and now it's 152, and I can't even believe that it's up almost 30, which I know a lot of channels get 30 or more subscribers a day, but for us, that's just absolutely insane. So I want to thank you guys so much, and if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. It really does change our entire future. Thank you guys for being so incredible, and I hope video gaming takes a turn for the better. I hope video gaming does better. And I know I mentioned that there were going to be some solutions, but generally speaking, that's the solution I wanted to talk about. I just hope that video gaming learns to diversify itself again and to make games for different people. So with that, may those rolls be ever in your favor. I hope you guys have a great time until the next video, and I'll see you guys in that one. Peace out.